Originally, my idea for this video was to shoot kind of like a grainy days style film photography vlog, where I like go out somewhere, take a couple stocks of film, take the photos, film me taking the photos, and then show them on screen, talk about them a little bit. I just kind of found out that's a little hard for me to do, I guess, because of my ADHD, or, I feel, in my opinion, it kind of takes away from me actually taking the pictures when I'm trying to get the video. So just didn't really pan out, but we're going to try this out. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the film stocks that I shot on in the month of January, what I liked, what I didn't like, maybe what worked, what didn't work, and I might delve into the cameras that I used a little bit, but I won't spend too much time on them. This is strictly just going to be about the film stocks. So before we do get into this, I will say that all of the photos, all the film here was developed and scanned by the Darkroom Film Lab over in California, and I'm not sponsored by the Darkroom. However, that'd be pretty cool. Just throwing that one out there. So the scans were done by them as well, and they're not the highest resolution. They're more like, I guess, the mid-tier resolution. That's what I paid for. So that's what I'm going to show in this video when I talk about the film, and I'll do my best to throw in some of my own edits that I did in Lightroom on these scans as well. So without further ado, let's talk about the film I shot in the month of January. So the first roll/film stock on this list was technically one that I carried over from the end of last year. It was a roll that I started within like the last couple days of December and then finished it off right there at the beginning of January, and it was Portra 400. Portra 400 is definitely a very popular stock of film, and what I like to do with it personally is I like to push it in camera one stop. So instead of rating it at 400 ISO, which is its box speed, I rate it at 800 ISO. And typically what that does with Portra 400 is it adds more contrast and it adds more grain. And in this case, it actually makes the images slightly warmer, which, can be bad and can be good. There were some photos there at the start of the roll down in Seneca Rocks that I really enjoyed. I think Portra did a fantastic job in really capturing the contrast and the mood of that day. It was really cloudy. The landscape down there around that time of the year is typically dull. It's brown. It's like that icky midwinter green. There's really not much to write home about. I really enjoyed the way that this film brought out the tones in the greens and the browns of the landscape. And then shortly after that, we got hit with a fairly decent snowstorm at the start of the year. And Sophia and we went out to Canaan Loop Road, which is part of the backcountry here out in Canaan. I don't have much experience with this film stock, so I really wanted to see how Portra 400 was going to do with the snow. So we finished it up out there, and honestly, I was really impressed with how these images look. Sure, they're a little warmer when they come back from the lab. And I don't think that's the lab scanner. I think that's Portra being pushed one stop. It tends to have a much warmer look to it, but I don't mind that. That's something easy I can tweak. And when you tweak that, the winter landscape really just, it looks awesome. I really like the moody tones on the trees. I really like the contrast between the snow and the landscape, really how that tannin colored water looks. I think it looks great. Product out of the camera doesn't really bother me. It's more so the contrast that I love the most. On the downside though, when you increase that contrast and when you push it one stop, you do get a little more film grain, which does take away the detail in your images. And that's the only thing that I really don't like. And you could definitely see that here on these photos. Definitely one of my favorite film stocks and formats to shoot it on is Kodak Gold on 35mm. It's an affordable film stock. It's got pretty decent image quality. And when I really got started in photographing things on film, I was practically given quite a number of rolls of expired Kodak Gold. A rule of thumb for me is I like to take my expired Kodak Gold, which is originally a 200 speed film, and I shoot it at 100 speed. And in the past, I've been pretty satisfied with the results. This roll, however, I completely screwed the pooch on because I got really excited to put my next roll of film in the camera that I forgot to roll up the film back into its canister. So I pretty much messed up every single image on this roll, minus one. I took this picture when Sophia and I went down to Luray Caverns and we explored the town of Luray, and it was pretty neat. And so I did snap a couple pictures of the tower, I snapped a couple pictures of the town, and I was hoping these were going to turn out, and they probably would have turned out well had I not opened up the back of the camera early. Outside of that one picture turning out, the entire roll, no thank you. So the reason why I had the premature back opening on the camera with that previous roll of Kodak Gold was because I was super excited to load in my very first roll of Harman's Phoenix 200. In the realm of film photography, this is a brand new color film stock. It's a brand new emulsion. It's not like some respooled thing of Kodak or, some rebranded film of some other film from, long past. And you can find tons of videos all over YouTube about this film stock. So I'll just save you with the quick bits. It's high in contrast, high in grain, high in saturation, and all around a very unforgiving film stock if you do not shoot this correctly. And spoiler alert, I did not shoot it correctly. In my research on this film, I was told that if you shoot it at 100 instead of 200, you actually get a little better image quality. So I did that. However, I did not shoot this film in the best lighting conditions, and that's where I faltered. First couple shots on this roll were done at Cooper's Rock right around sunset on our way back from Morgantown, and those came out looking pretty cool. You could definitely see some of those really pink, over-exaggerated halations out there in the highlights, and the remaining 80% of this roll was shot in totally different lighting conditions in a totally different location that probably is not the best for Phoenix 200. So most of the shots were done on the Minolta with a 35mm f2.8, and they were shot anywhere between a 60th to maybe a 15th of a second, hoping that my caffeine jitters weren't going to affect the camera shake. That, coupled with the unforgiving grain of this film stock, it was just not good. However, there were a couple frames out of this roll that I kind of liked. One of the turbines right there at Centennial Park, pretty cool. There were a couple that we took from the swinging bridge right outside of Hambleton, which I pretty much liked. I really liked how the contrast and how the saturation of this film, added to the tone of the landscape. So not a total loss, this roll of Phoenix 200. It's definitely a tricky stock of film, and I've shot a second roll since, and I'm waiting for those to come back from the lab so we can start scanning them. But all in all, pretty happy with Phoenix 200, even though it was a very difficult stock to shoot. So our last roll of 35mm and our last couple rolls of film were all done in the same setting and at the same location. The first roll in this set was Portra 160 on 35mm. We had a pretty nice set of cold days out here, and with the snow melt and some of the rain that we had, the rivers were pretty high. So the kayakers decided to come to town, and they hit me up. They said, "Hey Mark, we're coming around the Blackwater." I said, "Cool, I'm going to take some pictures on film." And I had several rolls of Portra 160 in the fridge, so I figured, why not? So got a couple nice photos here of the landscape, got a couple nice photos of some of my buddies carrying their kayaks down, some of them getting ready and putting on their gear, really just capturing the personalities of some of these guys before they hit that class 4 and 5 river. Well, the other cool thing too is that you don't see many kayaking photos shot on 35mm or 120 film, so this was a perfect opportunity. I think Portra 160 did a really good job in capturing the color of the landscape on that day. You have the color in the water, you have the color on the trees, the contrast with the snow, and even some of the blue sky. I like the detail in this film. I didn't push or pull it. I shot at a box speed. Portra 160 has my approval. So I did shoot a couple rolls of 120 film in this haul, and my first one here was Kodak Gold. I like Kodak Gold. It's probably one of my favorite film stocks, especially on 35mm. On 120, it's still growing on me a little bit. But just like with Portra 160, I think Kodak Gold did pretty good when it came to the kayaking pictures. I mostly used it for landscapes and for put-in shots. The action shots didn't really turn out on this roll, mostly because the camera that I was using, the Mamiya RB67, it's a large camera, but it's also a slow camera. So I don't think it's really built for action photography. I think this is more something aligned with a 35mm or something that can even advance your film a little bit faster. The Mamiya just wasn't it. And one of the things I notice with 120, and especially when shooting it on the Mamiya, is I come away with a lot of double exposures, and that's due in part to me forgetting that when you use the Mamiya RB67, nothing about that camera is automated. It's fully mechanical, so you have to remember to advance the film and drop the mirror, take the picture, advance the film, drop the mirror, take the picture. There's a whole lot of working parts. I know it's like 1 or 2 steps, I know, but it's a whole lot of working parts that you kind of have to remember, and when you're photographing something that happens within a couple seconds, it just doesn't cut it. So of course I'm going to come away with a few double exposures, and for the shots that did turn out, the details look great. You know, things for the most part are in focus, they're sharp, they're clear, and you do get more detail when you shoot 120, and you know, the photos that did turn out, I was really pleased with them. So Kodak Gold 120, still got some work to do, but I like it. So my final roll of film and the last of the kayaking pictures was done on Cinestill 800T. This is a tungsten balanced film, so it's going to look more blue than things like Kodak Gold or Portra, and it's 800 speed film, so it's probably going to be better for capturing your action than Portra 160 or Kodak Gold. Typically, I see a lot of photos of Cinestill 800 done for nighttime photography, especially when there's a lot of neon lights, specifically because of the low light and also the halation that you get from using this film stock. But I very rarely see it used in, you know, a sports setting or an outdoor setting. Did it run out? Did that light just pop off? That light just turned off. Okay. Struggles with the light. Jesus. That'll do. That works. So I took some portraits, took some landscapes, a couple action shots, and overall, I was pretty pleased with this. The one picture that I'm mad turned out the way that it did, but at the same time, I'm okay with the way it turned out that it did, is this photo here. And it's a double exposure of some kayakers taking off down the canyon, down Phil's 100-yard dash. And it's coupled with an exposure of my buddy Jess Tucker, who I ran into while I was out there coming up out of the put-in. And I said, "Hey Jess, can I take your photo real quick?" He said, "Sure." So I posed him for a portrait, took the photo, and I didn't even realize that I did not advance the film roll. I do tend to see a lot of photos, a lot of double exposures of people being meshed with their environment. Jess Tucker is not a kayaker, so it kind of doesn't really work here. But overall, I mean, if you take away the context of what's in the photograph, I think it's just the look, the feel of the image. It looks cool. The color right out of the lab scan without any adjustments looks cool. And then if you adjust it a little bit, make it warmer, make it kind of have, you know, a little bit more of a nostalgic glow to it, if you will. Not a bad picture. One of my favorite photos from this roll was a picture of my buddy Shimmy holding his charred gecko piranha. It's pretty cool. That's a kind of gnarly name for a kayak color. I really liked how this image turned out. You know, there's tons of detail in here. The color looks awesome. I did adjust it a little bit in post to make it slightly warmer. And that was the thing about this film stock, is I really liked how the colors and how the detail looked right out of the lab scan, but I really wanted to just make it warmer, so it made me kind of wonder how this film stock would do with a warming filter. All in all, I just really enjoyed this film stock. In conclusion, this is a pretty diverse haul of film for the month of January. This was the first haul of film in the month of January. I did end up using more film towards the end of the month, but I'm going to talk about that probably in my next video. But for this batch of film, this was a lot of fun. It was neat trying out some newer non-expired rolls of film. You see a lot of film that's being used out west. You see a lot of film that's being used in the streets, but you very rarely see any film photography coming from West Virginia. And so being able to use these film stocks here and try them out in different settings that I would normally use a digital camera, I really enjoyed it. Moving ahead with these film stocks, I think Portra 400, although I'd like the look whenever I push it one stop in camera, I think I'm just going to shoot it at box speed moving forward. I kind of want to see what that looks like more, especially if I want to use it in more professional settings. So I think Kodak Gold, I'm all out of the expired stuff. All I have is fresh stuff, and I really like how it looks. Assuming that it doesn't get screwed up when I try taking the film out of the camera, and if I just remember to roll up my 35mm when it's all done and re-spool it. Hopefully I won't mess anything up. So that's just something I got to remember moving forward. But Kodak Gold, I like. Portra 160, same deal. Really happy with the colors, really happy with how it looks. Phoenix 200 is a pretty challenging film, and I know this was my first roll in this set. I'm really excited to see how the second one turns out because I shot it in a little more of a controlled setting. But for this roll, it was a perfect test roll, and I'm still a huge fan of Phoenix 200. Now, when it comes down to Cinestill 800, honestly, I think this was my favorite of the bunch. Out of this entire haul of film from the first part of January, this was my favorite film stock. I know I only shot a couple of frames with it, but from what I did shoot, it was exactly what I hoped it would be and more. You know, using this tungsten balanced film with a warming filter in the future could yield some pretty cool photos. And, you know, when I was preparing to do this video, when I was writing the script for this video, I actually found out that Cinestill does a 50 speed daylight balanced film, and they do that in 120. So I'm only curious how that will look on some landscapes out here. Really, the only thing that holds me back from using more Cinestill is just that it's a pricey film stock. So that's it for the film that I shot in the month of January. Well, for the most part, for a good chunk of the month of January. I actually have more film that I shot from the latter half of January, and the beginning of February is currently being developed right now. Tried out a different lab over in New Jersey. Not that I don't like the darkroom. I think the darkroom did great. I'm just trying out some new stuff with film photography here, so I'm trying out a new lab. But I'm waiting for that film to come back, and hopefully when it comes back, we're going to get it scanned here. I just invested in an at-home film scan setup, so more about that later. So let me know what you guys thought of this one down below. Did you like this video? Did you not like it? What film stocks did you enjoy hearing about? What film stocks did I shoot on? Have you shot on, or have you tried? Are you curious about trying? Particularly Cinestill 800T. I'm curious. Is anybody out there, do you use it as a landscape film, or do you think it's strictly meant for nighttime or portraits? I don't know. Do you like to push or pull Portra 400 in camera and Phoenix 200? I want to know about that. Do you have any experience using that film? What do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Tell me down below. Love to hear more of your thoughts. Last video got some nice comments, and I was pretty happy about that. So hopefully that'll happen with this video, but if not, that's okay. We'll still keep making stuff and seeing what happens. So thank you all very much for watching. That's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.